Well, hello and welcome. In this week's Raw Prawn episode, we'll start with the demise of the Yardbirds and the birth of the mighty Led Zeppelin. After a successful US tour in early 1968, underlying tensions began to arise within the group, as some members expressed their discontentment. Jimmy Page wanted to take a prominent role within the group and become a guiding light of sorts. He also preferred a harder-hitting, less poppy style of music for the band's future recordings. After 6 years of struggling to gain a foothold in the US and England due to Giorgio Gomelsky's questionable leanings, things began to turn around when Peter Grant took over management of the band. However, becoming jaded, drummer Jim McCarty and vocalist Keith Relf wanted to play a more relaxed and laid-back form of acoustic music. On June 12th, the Yardbirds announced the departure of Relf and McCarty in a press release and returned home to play their final show on July 7th, 1968 at the College of Technology in Luton, Bedfordshire. Page and manager Peter Grant, on the other hand, had a good sense of the changing landscape in the American market due to the introduction of the FM radio format of album-oriented rock, and they were eager to tap into this. Without hesitation, Page started forming a new band. His good friend and ex-bandmate Jeff Beck, who had just formed the Jeff Beck Group, was also back in London and slowly gaining momentum playing club gigs. Page, who was invited to play with them on stage one Saturday night at the Marquee Club, later reflected on the experience in an interview in 1974. That night at the Marquee, there was definitely a feeling of what might have been, referring to their brief yet exciting tenure as twin guitarists in the Yardbirds in early 1966. Not long after the formation of the Jeff Beck Group, Beck became dissatisfied with the pressure and responsibility of leading a group under his own name. He asked Page if he wanted to join and rebrand the band with a different name. Page, keen to play with his friend again, counter-offered to start an entirely new band with him. As also stated in the interview, "I just couldn't see a future with Rod Stewart at all." Beck agreed, and they began searching for bandmates. The job of a vocalist is always going to be a crucial cog in the machine. Page had previously expressed a desire to collaborate with Terry Reid, who had a beautiful, soulful voice and the ability to write lyrics. However, Terry couldn't fully commit to another band, as he was preparing to go on a US tour as a support act for the Rolling Stones. But this all changed with the death of Brian Jones and the cancellation of the 1969 tour by the Stones. So with Beck and Page on guitars, Reid as vocalist, the next job was to find a rhythm section that could glue together the vision of a dual guitar attack. Originally, Page suggested that Chris Drazier could fill part of this void, but Beck dismissed this, as he didn't want to be seen as a continuation of the Yardbirds. Enter John Paul Jones, who had worked with Page and Beck before in various studio projects. "We couldn't believe our luck," stated Page, and grabbed him with glee. The last piece of the puzzle came down to drumming duties. Keith Moon's name was tossed around, but due to the Who gaining momentum after almost splitting up in 1967, Moon couldn't be persuaded. Reid suggested they head down to Hampstead, North London, and check out a guy named John Bonham, who he had previously come across in a band that was supporting his months earlier. They did, and were knocked out with how powerful he was. "We had to have him, and would stop at nothing," Beck later commented. Bonham, however, was initially reluctant. Grant sent 40 telegrams to Bonham's pub, the Three Men in a Boat, in Walsall. Bonham was also receiving more lucrative offers from Joe Cocker and Chris Farlow, but he accepted Grant's offer. He recalled, "I decided I liked their music better than Cocker's or Farlow's, so the band was complete." John Paul Jones remembered, "We knew from the first song at rehearsals this was something special. That song, incidentally, was Stroll On, a Yardbirds take on an old 1950s Johnny Burnett song. All that was left was a name. A few were bandied about, but one stood out, Led Zeppelin, a name attributed to Moon. who suggested they might go down like a lead balloon. So, Led Zeppelin it was. With a month of solid jamming and writing material, the opportunity arose to fulfill some previous Yardbird commitments in Scandinavia. It was agreed that the band could use the new Yardbirds moniker for that tour only. But this was not an option, as Beck's reluctance at being named the Yardbirds again stalled the idea. So with the new name Led Zeppelin and material from originals recently penned and covers of old blues tunes, the band was ready to do the tour. As not to stall the momentum and wait for record company signing and cash advances, Page decided to get into the studio with their new material and record an album. Page would pay for the sessions out of his own pocket, and to keep costs down, the band recorded the album in studio downtime in a remarkable 36 hours, with Glyn Johns as engineer and Page producing.